The events in this program are inspired by a true story. Names, dates, and events have been changed. Viewer discretion is advised. On this episode of Bizarre Murders, the strange things that lurk in the hearts of men and in internet chat rooms. When fantasies jump off the keyboard and into reality, you might just end up with the bizarrest murder of them all.
Don't you look delicious?
Once upon a time, in a farmhouse set in a beautiful valley of rolling hills, there lived a seemingly normal salesman. 42-year-old Gunter is a bachelor who resides in his childhood home alone. And from not having a partner, something else is missing from his life, a void that needs to be filled.
You see, Gunter dreams of eating people, actually ingesting them. This isn't a make-believe zombie fetish. He is an aspiring cannibal. It's a fantasy that began during his childhood.
I ask myself the same question, Gudrun, every day, and every day I come back to your home. I come back to you because of the boy, but that is not the boy I want.
Raised by a distant father and a verbally abusive mother, Gunter's household is chaotic to say the least. Nobody knows for sure what sets Gunter on the twisted path he takes from child to adulthood. Maybe it's his father walking out on him when he was only 5 years old.
Gunter grows up terrified of being abandoned. In his dreams, he has someone he loves and who loves him, a little brother, and they will never be apart because Gunter will eat him, ingest him. It's a sick take on togetherness, but Gunter takes it as kind of like snuggling. You want to snuggle with that guy?
Gunter doesn't get much affection at home. Bitter and angry, his mother treats her child as a servant and as an emotional punching bag.
The problem when somebody feels that they have no value is that they just can't go on living this way. A person needs dignity and self-respect.
As an adult, Gunter joins the army.
To the world, Gunter presents himself as friendly and charming while concealing a dark fantasy life. In the business, we call this a mask of sanity. For some people, acting normal is just that, an act. It's why people are so shocked when the quiet guy down the street who keeps to himself turns out to have a dozen skeletons in his closet. It's not an analogy, a dozen real skeletons.
Maybe it's the discipline of military life that keeps him on an even keel. Maybe being away from mom eases the pressure. Or maybe it's losing himself in drink. For that whole time, his fantasies continue, but he doesn't act on them. But it's harder to keep being a drunk under your hat. A couple of DUI car wrecks cost Gunter his military career and sends him crawling back to, you guessed it, Mommy's house.
Willkommen, Liebling.
It seems that this is a turning point for our boy Gunter. Up until now, he's been just a geeky loner weirdo. Every town's got a few of them. But he found a place for himself in the army. Getting booted, though, and ending up back at home where he started seemed to twist something deep inside of him.
Home, single, trapped with his abusive mother in an old house in a tiny village. His military career a failure, Gunter reinvents himself as a salesman. By day, selling surgical tools. by night, trolling the internet. And then, one fine day, Gunter gets a bit of luck.
This is the second turning point. With Mom out of the picture, Gunter is alone in a big house in a tiny village. He makes his mom's room into a shrine, like you do, and spends his empty nights searching chat rooms for people whose fantasies match his own. Now, with no one looking over his shoulder, there's nothing stopping him from making those weird fantasies come true.
In the darkest corners of the internet, Gunter finds what he's been looking for: hookup and cookup, a chat room in which people share their fantasies of eating human flesh or being consumed by a ravenous stranger. Gunter's dreams come true when someone calling himself Morsel replies that he's been looking for someone who wants to eat him up.
They don't just share fantasies, they talk like they're the real deal. They said things like, "I dreamed that someone will eat me up," or "Come to my house and I'll do it." Charming, huh?
In the Cannibal chat room world, Gunter becomes a star. His fantasies are compelling, and the murderous tableau he creates are tantalizingly real.
When you start lifting rocks on the internet, what crawls out can take your breath away, sometimes literally. There are boatloads of would-be cannibals out there and whole rafts of sick people who say they'd love to be eaten.
But not everything you order online is actually the merchandise you would hope for.
Luckily for the posers and role players Gunter lures into his home.
No.
He's no Hannibal Lecter. He only wants to dine on someone who's into it too and wants to be eaten.
It takes a while to winnow through the wannabes before Gunter finds the possible meal he's been looking for. If you're imagining a person with dark, hidden desires, Dieter might be the very last person you'd suspect. He's got a great job as a forensic accountant. He's in what looks like a happy, committed relationship.
I'll join you soon. I have to finish some work.
But behind those dreamy blue eyes, Dieter yearns for something. He yearns to be overpowered, absorbed, erased. He goes to the same chat rooms Gunter haunts, but his goal is not to be a cannibal. Dieter believes that his one purpose in life is to be treated like a beast, slaughtered, and eaten for his meat. I'm not making this up.
I want you to admire your dinner.
A romantic candlelight dinner is even more special when the person you are toasting is also the main course.
Are we going to dinner, or are you my dinner?
I have a plate all ready for you.
It used to be only the shadow who knew what evil lurked in the hearts of men. These days, it's anybody with a Wi-Fi connection, but crawling into those holes can be very disturbing. So be careful where you go and what you look for.
Have you slaughtered a man before?
No, only in my dreams.
Weird behaviors are frequently just normal ones taken to a bizarre extreme. Dieter wants to bring pleasure and to be close to someone. That's normal. He thinks the way to do that is to offer himself up as a meal. That's as far from normal as you can get.
Gunter and Dieter make a plan to turn their fantasy into a reality. Gunter has no clue how to go about slaughtering a human being, but he sets out to create the scenario he's got in his head, starting with a place to deal with Dieter's body.
Gunter.
Well, hello. Don't you look delicious?
My. Yeah, Gunter. What impressive teeth you have.
So now we're getting to the point where people usually say, hey, let's talk about our fantasies, fool around, and then watch a movie. If your partner is too enthusiastic, you say your safe word and bail out. At least that's what I've heard. But Dieter makes things very clear.
Dieter, I wanted you to admire your dinner.
He wants to be eaten, and it's dinner time now.
I just don't think this is working. I didn't want to be awake for this part.
I don't want to get too personal here, but some people can be very particular about their fantasies. Dieter had envisioned things going a little differently. For one thing, he'd figured on better anesthetic than cheap sizzurp and schnapps. Life's full of disappointments.
Drink some more.
Painkillers or no, Dieter is determined, and the disappointment of returning home uneaten is more than he can bear.
All right. You ready? I'm ready.
Dieter's biggest fantasy is that his cannibal lover will start by sinking his teeth into his private parts.
Oh my God.
Well, this is something you shouldn't try at home, or anywhere else for that matter. It's tough, apparently, and very, very sensitive.
Ah! Oh my God!
I'm sorry, Dieter. It's tougher than I thought.
I don't care how much schnapps or magic nighty-nighty cold gloop you've got in your system. The pain must be unimaginable. But obsessions have their own power, and Dieter is desperate to be consumed, to be erased.
Even though Dieter is becoming faint from all the bleeding,
Taste yourself. Taste.
Gunter doesn't want their dream date to end so soon. He's eager to please his dinner companion.
Maybe we need to cook it, yes? Little butter, some garlic.
Even now, even mutilated, Dieter could have survived. But he makes Gunter promise not to call an ambulance. That, my friends, is commitment.
What's wrong?
You're not much of a cook.
Gunter and Dieter's cannibal picnic has surprisingly turned into a painful bloodbath. But both of them are determined to make their fantasies come true.
Though despite being determined, both are amateurs.
It turns out that being emasculated by a clueless cannibal wannabe is not a ticket to a painless death nor a quick death. Oh no! Morning finds Dieter still alive, but he's too weak to participate anymore in his self-slaughter. He makes Gunter promise not to wimp out and call an ambulance.
Gunter.
I don't think it will be long now. Thank you.
Good night, dear Dieter.
Bon appetit.
His fantasy now satisfied, Gunter savors every moment of the experience of taking Dieter apart, wrapping up the meat, and stowing him in the freezer. It's a telltale sign of serial killers that their murders become a kind of ceremony or a ritual.
Out of respect for Dieter, he lays out his best china and opens his finest Brunello.
Prost, dear Dieter. You are as delicious as you were handsome.
It's not that no one was looking for Dieter or that they didn't care. His partner missed him terribly and called in the police when he didn't return from the conference he was supposedly attending.
Dieter did a good job of covering his tracks. He's wiped his hard drive. He paid cash for his train ticket. It was his heart's desire to just vanish, and that's what he's done. As for Gunter, no one suspects him of anything. Dieter was a stranger. If Gunter keeps his head low, nothing's gonna stop him from killing again.
While Dieter's lover searches in vain, Gunter slowly works his way through his freezer load of Dieter steaks and schnitzels. He gets through about a pound a week. It's only a few months before Gunter starts feeling the need for some variety in his diet. He tells his hookup and cook-up chat room pals that now he's a real cannibal. He uses the details of what he did to Dieter to impress prospective entrees.
Now, Gunter has made what polite people like you and me call bad choices. Going online, talking about eating people, not the best choice. Actually eating somebody, very bad choice. Bragging online about eating people, that's how you attract attention for sure. Maybe more attention than you want.
In the chat rooms he haunts, Gunter meets a lot of thrill-seeking posers who type a good game, but they ghost him when he offers the chance to actually be turned into a blue plate special.
Sadly for Gunter, his search is looking fruitless until he gets a bite that seems too good to be true.
Felix is a 25-year-old law student living in Austria. After some chatting, Felix seems to be exactly what Gunter's been looking for. He's young, he's slender and fit. Gunter is drooling with desire.
Hello, Felix. I would love to make a tasty meal of your delicious flesh. I can prove it to you.
Gunter sends details to prove that he's ready to take Felix from farm to table, in comfort and style.
Gunter's dreams have focused on tender young things. Could his second conquest be even more exciting than the first?
Gunter's hot on the trail of a 25-year-old Austrian law student whom he thinks will be more tender than the tough meat he got from Dieter.
There's only one problem. Felix is not interested in actually being made into bratwurst. He's just playing a weird game. And once he coaxes enough out of Gunter to convince himself he's really chatting with a killer cannibal, he calls the cops. Gunter's given enough away in his chats for the police to figure out who he is.
The investigators can't tell for sure if the graphic images Gunter's posted online are real or just skillful amateur horror filmmaking.
Come in.
As for Gunter, he's confident he's done nothing wrong.
Please have a seat.
What is this?
Wild pig. A little gamey, but sehr good. Have some.
The detective takes the frozen remains and has them tested in a lab. But most incriminating is the 6 hours of gruesome video documenting the bloody dinner party that Gunter and Dieter had the night the butchery began. The meat is human. Dieter is identified. The secret world of cannibals who find their prey online is both shocking and horrifying to the public.
Gunter is found guilty of murder and is currently serving a life sentence without possibility of parole. He says there's lots of would-be cannibals in the world, and he advises them to find a better hobby: coaching soccer, building model boats, train spotting. Oh, and one more thing. Gunter's a vegetarian now. He never eats anything that can talk back. I'm just glad I wasn't the detective who had to investigate this.